Straw Hut Media.
Pretty deep, right? I kind of nailed that answer, guys.
It was way less generic than mine.
By the way, I don't know if this affects anything, but I can't actually hear KK for some reason. I hear everybody else. Is that going to be a problem? No.
Who are we? We're a couple of true crime aficionados.
Kind of like Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, the three main characters in the Hulu original show Only Murders in the Building, now in season 2.
And we're here making a podcast about a show where the characters make their own podcast about a murder.
I'm your host, Kevin Lawn.
And I'm your other host, Elizabeth Keener.
Why are we here? To solve a murder.
And to try to figure out who the killer is before all is revealed in the season finale.
We may not be in the Arconia ourselves, but we'll get some inside information from members of the cast and crew and clues to help us piece it all together.
Today, we'll be talking to the writers of episode 5, Matteo Borghese and Rob Turbovsky, as well as Ryan Broussard, who plays Will Putnam, and Ariel Shafir, who plays Ivan.
Plus, we'll hear more from showrunner and co-creator John Hoffman.
We'll talk about Oliver's gift for reading people, Teddy's 20-year fuck, and Ivan's essential role in solving Bunny's murder.
As of now, we've seen the first 5 episodes, so listeners beware. We're going to give a quick recap. If you haven't watched, hit the pause button, stream episode 5 now, and come right back so we don't spoil anything for you.
We don't want to spoil it. Episode 5. Will narrates the opening of this episode, and he tells us about Oliver's keen power of observation.
And his go-to party game, Son of Sam. Charles asks Jan for help in figuring out who killed Bunny, and she says they should be looking for an artist or a storyteller.
Mabel and Alice are getting closer, and while they're on the phone, Mabel discovers a secret entrance through a floor vent into her apartment,
where she finds a matchbook for the Pickle Diner that might have blood on it.
She agrees to let Alice host her upcoming art party at her apartment.
The trio head to the Pickle Diner to look for clues. Ivan gives them a list of all his regulars.
At the party, Oliver brings out the Son of Sam game and accuses Alice of lying. She admits she's been lying about her background, but nothing else.
Later, Oliver spots Ivan returning the envelope of cash. He follows him back to the diner, and that's where Ivan shows the security footage of Bunny's last day.
She's meeting with someone, and that person gets up and grabs a matchbook.
By the end of the episode, Mabel and Alice are still okay. She apologizes and promises to be honest.
Don't we all, KK? But something's still off about Alice. We see she has the Son of Sam card in her bag.
And Will breaks some news to Oliver. He got his DNA results back, and instead of being half Irish, they are half Greek.
That's not possible, is it? Greek? No, that can't.
How is this season compared to last season for you guys?
Just terrible. No, this has been, it's been really fun.
This is Matteo Borghese, one of the writers of this episode. You might remember him from episode 8 of season 1.
I think we added an element of difficulty to the process a little bit because we were kind of getting used to the structure and the storytelling of a mystery. And now we're kind of coming back and we felt like we could play around with it a little bit more.
One thing they're taking into account is how people watching Only Murders respond to the show.
We definitely kind of like look at what the fans are saying and kind of consider it. And it's also given us ideas too, because I think the fans go off in all sorts of interesting directions. And part of our job is to kind of like satisfy that kind of urge to be like, oh, is it this guy? Is it this person? What were they doing? Is that suspicious? So I think it gave us like an opportunity to kind of lead our audience in unexpected places and to different suspects. And I think that adds an element of difficulty because you have to kind of pay off all of those little directions eventually, or people are going to get extremely frustrated and angry at you. Yeah. But it also kind of opens up new avenues of like kind of storytelling, I guess.
I found it, as our friend Ben Smith said, it's easy. It's easy.
And this is Rob Turbovsky. He and Matteo have been writing together for many years. They wrote on shows like Silicon Valley, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Lady Dynamite.
Let's just get better. It's like, it's easy to write. We were joking about that earlier. It's like you want it to be different, but the same but different kind of is, what you're trying to do. And that's never that simple, I guess. You're trying, you want to be like surprising, but you want people to be like, oh yeah, it's that show I love, again, but not so similar that they're like, why did they do more of these, but not so different that you're like, why did they do more of these, It's all about the tone.
In this episode, we learn about Oliver's go-to party game, Son of Sam. Here's showrunner and co-creator John Hoffman talking about it.
The invention of our brilliant writers, Matteo Borghese and Rob Turbovsky. We talked a lot about Oliver's youth and his time in New York and when he first met Teddy and what his life was like and how he was interested and how he got involved in this sort of, how this theater director, who clearly was obsessed on that, also had this other interesting aspect to him, which was, I like to get to know when someone's lying. I have a skill. I have an expertise about having a sense for the truth when I'm getting it and when I'm not getting it.
And the game might look familiar if you've ever played Mafia or Werewolf.
It's not a real game exactly, but you're right. It's based on, there was some New Year's Eve party I was at once where we played a similar sort of like murder mystery kind of game, and so it was sort of adapted from that and games like Mafia, a game where you have to do a lot of talking. So we thought that would be a fun way for, how's Oliver going to try to solve this mystery that's in a very Oliver sort of way.
And I think there was elements of the Son of Sam story that we thought would be like fun for the narrative, and it opens up like kind of different ideas and themes that maybe later on we'll return to, I think.
Oh. The Son of Sam, for those of you who don't know, was an infamous serial killer who terrorized New York in the 1970s. Between 1976 and 1977, he killed 6 people and wounded 7 others. He wrote crazy letters to the police, and in them, he referred to himself as the Son of Sam.
Yeah, it's a very strange case. But something that's kind of funny about Oliver's game is that all the players are either the Son of Sam killer or an innocent blonde. But the actual Son of Sam mostly targeted women with long, dark hair.
Except for his last victim, Stacy Moskowitz. And it was her murder that eventually led to his capture.
Very interesting. And you know how Rob was saying they want to make things the same but different in season 2? The Son of Sam game is a bit like his chorus line auditions for the murderer in episode 3 of last season.
It is, KK, where each person stepped forward and admitted to the murder, and he decided whether it was believable. Very similar.
Yeah, I think there's something that we really like about Oliver being like kind of he works from his gut a little bit, and the kind of logic of his method like can't really be questioned. It's not like purely rational the way he makes his decisions, and we just kind of want to honor that his completely irrational kind of emotional thinking. So that's kind of a little bit where we came to it. And of course, when you're doing the mystery, you're like, this should make sense on some level, but for Oliver, like, we don't need to have that rule necessarily.
It's always a goal that it makes sense on some level. That's the goal, I think.
John Hoffman goes on to talk about Oliver's sense for the truth.
And that goes to his theater direction. I think a director would say, I can sense that as well. And you want a director who can sense the truth and what feels not as authentic. But here it related to the obvious sort of where he goes with Mabel and Charles, leaning towards true crime investigation and podcasting. So the source of that and the pride he has in that, I know this. I thought that was a really interesting thing to take us back into his history in New York and when he first landed here and what was his calling card and around the 70s, the idea in New York and looking at that picture and thinking of, one of the most infamous killers in New York's history and letting that be a game of some sorts, because the game gets upended for Oliver by the end of that episode in a major way, just when he thinks he's doing the thing that he does better than anybody, and he's knowing when someone is telling him the truth or not. He realizes, with probably the biggest part of his life, he's missed it. He's missed it. And could it be actually true? We'll find out. But yeah, that's something.
Okay, Zoomers, this shindig is flatlining, but thankfully, Dr. Oliver Feelgood's got something to jumpstart its heart. A party game.
Oliver, what are you doing?
Oh, I know we're all too cool for this, Mabel. Do you know who else thought he was too cool? Andy Warhol. Knew him, taught him how to play at the factory in '79.
This is demented, and I'm in.
Wonderful. Step one, drugs. But fair warning, they may be a few decades old. Red before green, you're peeing clean. Green before red, your liver's dead.
What is he doing?
He's either pushing benzodrine or penicillin.
It's an innocent game. Now everyone get pilled out and prepare to travel back to gritty go-go in your face. Dancing, Bronx on fire, let's go Knicks! Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Muppets Take Manhattan, New York City of 1977, and Blackout. It's a hot, sweaty summer night, and there's a madman on the loose.
It felt like Martin Short was really in his element in the Son of Sam scene with Alice. How much did he contribute in that, and how much was the writer's room?
Well, he's always a really good sport about doing the incredibly long monologues that we write for him, you know, and he will try anything. And so I think a lot of that was as written, especially that big long one at the beginning that kind of starts the game where he comes in with the pills, which they did in one shot, which is amazing. But he really in writing it, we knew like he's going to bring like a crazy amount of energy to this because he does to everything. So it will be fun to challenge him by just giving him an insanely long speech that really you shouldn't expect any human being to be able to do in one take. But he did it.
That's cool to know that was one take, right, KK?
Yeah.
I mean, it was longer while we were writing it. Yeah. Like,
yes.
we really, like, that was us paring it back, too. Because we were like, we might kill a legend if we make him do this.
It did become like a kind of impossible, like a tongue twister of things that he's listing, just like nonsense descriptors of New York in the 70s. It was like 3 times. It was like considerably longer, and we're just like, this is ridiculous.
I know for a fact.
I think at one point we had him saying, New York, New York, New York, New York.
Yeah.
New York in the 70s.
Yeah,
we just wanted him to stack as many New Yorks together as possible.
Yes. And then that became Muppets Take Manhattan, I think.
That became Muppets, which makes my heart sing.
Yep.
But apparently that was released, like, we had, like, kind of a standoff at some point. There was, like, a moment where that didn't make it in, or almost didn't make it in, because it was like, well, technically that's a picture from 1981, so does that really square with New York in the 70s? And I don't know. I still think of Kermit when I think of New York in the 70s. So.
Yeah, like it's not a documentary.
Oliver uses the game to pull the truth out of Alice. And while he does end up getting her to admit to lying, it's not the truth that he expects.
Weird Swedish porno film, and you are not who you say you are.
Okay! Fine. I didn't go to Oxford. No one in my family is rich or is in the arts. But who wants to buy a $50,000 painting from the daughter of a plumber from Essex? I didn't think so. I've had to lie to create some legitimacy for myself in this world. And yes, I get the irony in what I just said. And now, if you are done humiliating me, game over, please. Thank you.
Alice and Mabel wind up making up in the end, but then we see that she has the Son of Sam card stashed in her bag.
Yeah, so it seems there's more to uncover about her.
She was a fun one to write because it is like, you know, when you're crafting, figuring out, okay, who are these characters who are going to introduce and what's compelling about them that's different from anyone we've seen before, and what are we wanting them to illuminate about Mabel? You know, that's really what those relationships are about. So we're like, okay, here's someone who's, you know, in the world that Mabel wants to be in, you know, and she's such a different flavor than anything we've had before. So you could see how Mabel would, what she would find attractive about this person who's reaching out to her about her art, you know, this thing that she cares about, that she can connect to. And this is someone who potentially could lead her towards a future that she's excited about. It's not a figure from her past like Oscar or anything like that. So you know, we wanted to really think about that, like what the promise is that Alice offers her. I think we wanted to think about that. Matteo, what did you want to think about?
Definitely not that. Ignore that. Whatever that was. No, I think that's right. I think we were very like cognizant of the fact that like Mabel's life had kind of been interrupted by the crime in the first season, and now she gets to kind of rethink it all. And I think Alice is someone who is far along on a track that she kind of wants to be on a little bit right now, or is considering being on. So there's something that Mabel kind of sees in her. It's like, you know, like a life that maybe she would have wanted if she hadn't been through all of that in the first season.
We've heard from a lot of fans that think Alice was involved in some way in Bunny's death and maybe the disappearance of the painting. What do you think about that, KK?
Well, I think Alice has definitely been the number one suspect for the viewers. I think there is a lot to be said about her art gallery background that's going to be tied into that $1 million painting that is missing.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking also, I mean, I think I've said Alice once or twice as my guest for the Whodunit Summit, but I don't know. Is it too much on the nose? You know,
that's what I'm wondering too.
Right. Look for an artist kind of person, and who knows? I don't know.
And the painting could be a side mystery, not the murder mystery.
Yes, could be.
Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, Matteo and Rob tell us about the return of Jan. Plus, actor Ryan Broussard gives us some insight into the complicated relationship between Will and Oliver. Jan was reintroduced at the end of the last episode, episode 4. And in this episode, we get a lot of conversations between her and Charles. Really funny jokes and great lines. Can you tell us about writing those?
It was something that we like wanted to do from the start of season 2, was to bring Jan back and to have her in prison and see what she's up to now, and kind of like, I think it was very early on that we were like, oh, her attitude is basically like, we never broke up. Like, we are still dating. And I don't know. That just felt, however we could get to that, we wanted to get to that.
And it had some touches of Silence of the Lambs, too, where Charles goes to her for advice on who the murderer could be.
Yeah, that was the term in the writer's room, was Silence of the Jam. And we got to play through this. And I don't know, there's just something so fun about, like, I can see it for Charles because she's so seductive and seems so normal, even though you know she's a killer. And that's kind of the fun of it. Like, we know that she'll be able to, like, say whatever we tell her, like, whatever we write down. Like, she'll say it in a way that it kind of makes sense. It makes, like, emotional sense, even if, like, she's behind bars and will kill you if she gets out. And that's just a wonderful feeling to have, I think.
Yeah. You added that. That was it.
I would agree. This is our sparkling banter, you know. I think we loved right away that idea of Hannibal Jan. Just like the pull of her. We had a lot of fun with that call when he's like laying on his bed late at night and she's in the jail, and just like making them feel like they were together in that moment, you know?
Wait, she's dating an actual artist? No kidding. That's like a criminal profiling hole in one.
Yeah, but now I'm not so sure.
Why? Is she flirting with you? I'm getting a wee bit jealous.
There's nothing to be jealous about. Also, we're not a couple.
You're a detective. Look at the evidence. We're a good match. You brought out something in my bassoon playing. Something feral.
Stop it.
Oh, Charles. If you wanted me to stop, you'd just hang up.
That was a lot of fun. Like, just the way that you like sort of lose yourself. It made me think of when I was in college, freshman year, my roommate, when very beginning of freshman year, had, his girlfriend back in Ohio or wherever he was from, and just listening to his end of their phone calls, of like, we're both, thinking of looking at the sky together or something like that, and I was like, oh, I should just steal that. And now this guy's going to hear this podcast and hate me or whatever. I'm sorry. I'm doing it lovingly. I won't use your name.
Ah, the plight of having writers for friends, right? You never know what's going to end up in their script or their story.
I think of myself as like as a content vacuum cleaner. If there's stuff laying around in the carpet of the world, I'm gonna scoop it up, and then it's gonna sit inside me until I'm ready to be emptied out into television.
This is a big episode for Oliver's son, Will. We get to hear from him through the narration, and he gives us an inside look at Oliver's past.
We really enjoyed that relationship in season 1, and I think it was a huge priority to get Will back in the show. And I think we couldn't just replay the same dynamic as season 1. So we wanted to add something kind of completely new and unexpected and see how these two characters kind of handle that, I think.
And I think the question of in what ways is Will Oliver's son? What are the things you absorb from, your father growing up and peeking around the corner at parties, and the fact that Will is now directing a play and how that makes Oliver feel, I think were all really interesting questions to consider.
Was there ever any discussion last season that Will could be Teddy's son?
Oh, you mean like in the writers'
room?
room?
Laid everything out.
Was there?
Expertly. Every single consideration and question has been thought of years in advance by us immediately, and we know every twist and turn that's to come. So nothing is left to chance, and everything is thought through, is what I'll say.
Will and Oliver's relationship has taken a big leap from the first season, and I'm not giving anything away, but there's some stuff about to go down with those characters.
This is actor Ryan Broussard. He plays Will.
Yeah, I was super excited when you guys reached out. I was like, I didn't even know the podcast was going, and then you guys reached out to me. I was like, of course there's a podcast about the murder podcast show.
Oh,
exactly.
Right.
It's very meta. It's very meta. Fun fact, Will started acting just 7 years ago after being a lifelong athlete.
He even played shortstop for the Los Angeles Angels for a few years.
And like a lot of folks in Only Murders, he's a theater actor. He was cast in his first Broadway show, Take Me Out, just a couple of years ago.
Getting dressed to go to my first day of rehearsals. And yeah, that was the day that all of Broadway shut down. They were like,
but when Broadway came back, the show went up and it won a Tony Award.
So from baseball to acting about baseball. Ugh.
Yeah, it was a full circle thing.
Yeah.
There was a silver lining to the Broadway shutdown, though.
The Only Murders silver lining.
This has been a dream come true, being able to work with Stephen Martin. Every single day that I'm on set, and I get, especially, getting to be around Martin, it's like, yeah, I don't have to pretend anymore to try to be his son. I actually feel like we have this connection on set. I mean, we have such a great relationship, for the days that I work, and every single day. I mean, some days it's 12, 13-hour days. But I even find myself bummed, once the day is over. It's like I don't want to leave. I don't want it to end. Wow. It's such a fun set. I mean, I've never been on a set and been surrounded by so many people who care about each other, who light up once you come into the room, and everybody just enjoys each other's company. It's a really, really special show.
For all of you who have been suspicious of Will, Ryan told us about a scene from season 1 that ended up being cut that might have you trust him more.
But it was just kind of this kind of heartwarming scene where, I fix Winnie up and I tell him, she's going to be okay.
I was wondering how this season compared to last season.
I I don't want to be biased, but the second season, I mean, there's just so much more, I think, comedy in it. There's the writing. I'm in love. I was in love with the first season as well. The first season was amazing, and get to see everything and also see how many people love the show was incredible. I mean, there was so many people who were tuning in and watching it on a weekly basis. And I kind of love that. Like, it's not a binge watch. You have to, it's one of those shows that it's set up to make you have to wait the next week, and people hate it, and I love it. Yeah. I love the anticipation. It's all unfolding this season of like the relationship between Oliver and Will, and now he's getting me involved with all his shenanigans from first season and now continuing on the second season.
There is a scene where Will has to tell Oliver that his DNA results came back Greek and not Irish as expected. Can you tell us about filming that scene?
Yeah, it was a huge reveal once we got the script. That came out of nowhere for me. Once we all kind of sat down and read it and we got to the end of that scene, I think I looked up at John and I was like, are you kidding me? Are you? And like, we all kind of just busted out laughing. And then I just even had this kind of running joke with the cast of like, you know how long I've waited my entire life to play Martin Short's son. Now I have to play Nathan Lane's son. rough life, you know. Yeah. But yeah, it was a intense day just because we were revealing, and we wanted to get it right. We wanted that last moment of what we see at the end of episode 5 to hit the audience and be like, oh my God, just because it's such a huge reveal. In episode 4 when he finally comes back, Teddy has that back and forth with Oliver before he closes the elevator, and he says, I'm going to fuck you. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I'm going to fuck you. And then the next episode, you see how he fucks Oliver. So it was intense. And he's like, it was a 20-year fuck. Took a while to catch up.
He played the long game. Yeah. And if Teddy is your character's father, that means you'd have a new brother, Theo.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and what is that? Yeah. And what is that relationship going to be? We'll get to unpack all those daddy issues, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you'll be part of the
season 2 and all of season 3.
You'll be part of the dip.
You get free deli food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if I'm a Demas, I want dips. I want free dip
for life. Yeah.
It's the least you could do.
You're right.
Fatherhood is a big theme this season. Not only are we looking at the dynamic between Will and Oliver, and maybe Teddy now, we've also learned a little bit about Charles's father. And we've seen Charles as a father figure to Lucy.
Mabel talks a little about her father, too, and how she sees Charles as a father figure. Here's Rob and Matteo on the theme of fatherhood.
As parents of this season. No, I don't have anywhere to go with that. Matteo, you're a father. You can say that publicly, right?
Spin it out. Yes. Yes. I can say it publicly, confidently. I am a father. Therefore, I know. It was actually my idea that the characters have fathers. Because before, there was some thought that they'd been hatched or they had split asexually, as a amoeba would have done.
Which is very big.
I
these
raised
days.
my voice that first day in the writer's room. And I said they should have fathers, and maybe they have interesting relationships with them.
And I'm guessing you heard that from somewhere. You heard that from somewhere and took it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you stood your ground.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And it worked. Pretty early on in this episode, Mabel finds a secret passageway into her apartment with a matchbook in it. She calls Oliver and Charles over.
Oh, is that the matchbook in question?
No!
Fingerprints.
Sorry. The pickle diner?
Look, is that blood?
Or is that a spot of ketchup?
Interesting. Tell me, matchbook, are you clue or condiment?
And their brainstorming gradually devolves into a very long and ridiculous conversation about the Iran-Contra scandal.
Well, Charles, memory can contain both objective reality and subjective perception. For example, you remember being a huge television star, but I remember flipping past Brazos to watch the Iran-Contra hearings. So, Mabel, what do you remember?
Not the Iran-Contra.
Oh, that was easy. Ronald Reagan, who I didn't always agree with politically, but whose acting chops and hair color I respected, was opposed to something called the Boland Amendment.
Whoa. He's skipping over the Carter-Iranian arms embargo.
But she doesn't need me to recap the whole embassy standoff. Couple of names to remember. Robert McFarlane and John Poindexter.
And don't forget Weinberger and North.
I wasn't going to.
Or the Tower Commission.
I wasn't going to. I know all the players. Negroponte, Noriega, Hassenfass.
He forgot Ed Meese, everybody.
Yeah, I wasn't going to forget Ed Meese, everybody. But I'll tell you who we did forget. Fawn Hall.
Oh my God, shut up. I don't care about any of this.
Well, you should. It's worse than Watergate, just not as interesting.
Can you tell us about the Iran-Contra joke? Because it's a very long joke, but very funny. And like, especially like worse than Watergate, but less interesting. Like, how did that come to be?
Now you're talking about something I can emotionally connect to. None of that fatherhood shit. But, that one was, I think that one was very enjoyable to write. I think that was that's the dream, is to force two comedy legends to just say nonsense names from 35 years ago at each other at a, incredible clip. There were different versions of it. In one of the initial drafts, it was like pretty long. And then I think Dan Fogelman read it and his feedback was like, I thought I was getting bored with this, but then it won me back. So like it can get way longer. And then it got like twice as long. And then it sort of shrank, and it was just like them having this competition of who remembers, Noriega or Ed Meese or whatever. It's kind of like a version of, the rake joke on The Simpsons, where Sideshow Bob steps on like 200 rakes. And, the first rake is funny, then the second rake is like less funny, and the third rake is less funny than that. But then as it gets longer and longer, it gets funnier again. Hopefully that's what we did while teaching people about an overlooked chapter of American history.
And Fawn Hall.
Oh, it's the best.
Yes.
We had like a little line about Fawn Hall that I'm sad didn't make it, but through one of the drafts, just like them both saying,
"She's the dame."
She was the dame. She's the dame.
She's the dame.
So triumphantly, Marty did like a little like a little purr or something. It's like, she's the dame. But what really makes me laugh in that scene too, and this is like a thing we didn't really write, and is a good example of the actors and the director like finding extra laughs, is the Selena like kind of pacing back and forth and just like staring at them, sort of like, when are they going to be finished with this, Iran-Contra, like just meaningless sort of meander. Like that always really makes me laugh, her just like losing her patience with them. And that was, she brought that and the director and the staging of it, I thought was great.
Did you guys have table reads and on over Zoom, and is everyone bringing it a lot I don't even know. I don't know if anybody's doing table reads over Zoom.
We do have table reads over Zoom. People bring it. I believe during the reading of this episode, I brought it because I forgot that my microphone was on, and I was laughing audibly at my own jokes during the table read until Rob started texting me frantically to turn off my microphone, and that I was embarrassing myself and him and our joint creative
and
endeavor.
Your children.
And my children.
Fatherhood.
And my father. And it all comes back to the theme of fatherhood.
Right. We're going to take another quick break now, and when we come back, we talk to Ariel Shafir, who plays Ivan. Plus, we get an interesting clue from Rob and Matteo, and we make our guesses.
The matchbook that Mabel finds leads the trio to the Pickle Diner and to Ivan. First, he gives them his list of regulars. Then Oliver spots him returning that big envelope of cash that Bunny gave him.
I heard you talking about Bunny this morning. Make me think I should return the money she gave me. I don't want any trouble.
But it's a hell of a lot of money. Ivan, doesn't look good.
For 7 years, she was my regular. She always tipped me extra. At first, just little. Then even more generously. Maybe she saw me as grandson. Maybe she saw me as something else.
This is one layer of the onion I did not need to peel back.
You know, when someone gets knocked off who just gave you a bunch of money, your imagination can go to a lot of places.
This is Ariel Shafir. He plays Ivan.
Are they looking for the money? Now I have the money. Are they looking for me? You know what I mean? So it makes the wheels spin in terms of like, who's missing this money? You know, why is this person dead? You know?
And Ivan doesn't want any trouble.
I felt that Ivan was an immigrant or came to America. Wasn't born here. He's part of a family diner. And like people who work in restaurants, it can start to feel like a family situation. And then it feels like a family to the people who are his regulars, you know, and someone like Bunny may remind him of a family that he's no longer lives in the same city with. He sort of has that fellowship with the people who come in. And I think he's one of those people that people will tell him their life story. If they sat next to him on a bus or a plane, he's that guy that has that sort of openness to him, and people project things onto him and tell him everything. And he probably has an insight or a connection to everyone in that neighborhood and everyone in that building. I mean, there's everyone at some point eats in that diner that lives in that building, and that sort of places him in the perfect position in that sort of ecosystem of only murders in the building. You know, it's like Pickle Diner is a hub of sorts. So, I think you'll see all sorts of people coming in and out of the diner. And when anyone is in that diner, who's there but Ivan?
Ariel, like Ryan Broussard and Jane Howdyshell, and like a lot of the cast and crew, has a theater background too.
The strangeness of shooting out of sequence, cross-shooting episodes in a single day, having different directors, being absolutely brand new on an ensemble cast and showing up to like deliver felt more comfortable to me because I was surrounded by theater people. You know what I mean? Everyone's sort of like, okay, there's a level of faith and trust in process and in sort of like being there for each other. And, you know, even Marty Short and Steve Martin have a long history of doing live things and performing, you know, doing theater. Steve Martin's written a lot of plays. So there's something in the DNA of the whole show that has that going for it.
And you know what? I actually just realized this, but Oliver and Charles are representations themselves of the intersection between television and the theater.
That's true. Oliver is a theater director and Charles is a television star.
And Oliver's theater background goes back many generations, he says.
There was a thing when Oliver is with Will, and they're watching the kind of rehearsals of the play, and Will is talking about, you know, the family's roots and, you know, the theater go back however many generations. I don't remember if that's in there, but there was an additional line where he's talking about like how far back in theater they go, and he references the vaudeville team of Putnam and Booth, and that Oliver's great-great-great-grandfather was in a comedy or performance team with John Wilkes Booth that broke up after Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln. But actually, it wasn't a vaudeville team. It was even older than that, and we called it like the Traveling Chicken Torture Medicine Show of Putnam and Booth, I think. And that just was decided to be a nonsense mouthful that was horrible, and so it was not used, but it was shot. It was very amusing.
Well,
that paints a picture to me.
Marty tried it a few times, and then he was like, I can't make sense of this. And we were like, fair enough, neither can we, and we wrote it.
So Martin Short cut a line.
And Steve Martin added a line.
And I think Steve's line that I think is really funny after when Oliver leaves to go get the drugs and he just leaves him alone, kind of stranded, and he tries to talk to somebody, and he's like, I don't do well at parties because people find me creepy. I think that's him. I mean, I don't think we definitely didn't write it, so I think he ad-libbed that.
I don't think we would write something like that. It's just so funny, and it's such a like straight, like it's like a perfect knuckleball joke, you know. Like, I think we wouldn't think to write something that just kind of is so kind of straightforward like that. It's very funny.
In this episode, are we anywhere closer to knowing what 14 and savage mean? Because you guys talk about it in this episode. So
I think the answer is actually yes, in fact.
Okay, thank you.
After you watch all of the episodes, if you do watch all the episodes, you will come back to this podcast episode and you will hear me say this again, because you're listening to this again, I guess, in this reality. And you will hear my voice and you will nod and you'll be like, I understand exactly what he's talking about. And what a clever little tip of the hat to the way it all played out.
You know, there is a movie that we are referencing, but I can't say what it is, but I'll come back to it you know, ask me again after episode 10. I'm afraid if I say it, it will give too much away, but you are closer, sure, you know. Yeah, let's go with that.
That's good. Okay. You know what? We will take those clues.
I really don't even know what you're talking about.
Well,
like,
what I'll say is we would talk about this movie and this thing in this movie, and then I went and rewatched the movie, and I was like, oh, I totally fucking misremembered it, and we did it. We're doing it completely wrong. But so good luck figuring it out based on those clues.
So really, you didn't reference it. You just thought you were referencing a movie.
Yes.
KK, you know what time it is.
My favorite time.
Yep, it's the Who Done It
Summit. This is where Keener and I guess who we think the murderer is based on what we've seen so far, which is up to episode 5.
Up to episode 5.
We write down our murder suspect, put it in an envelope, and seal it until right now when we reveal it to each other. All right, so you picked Howard, the cat guy.
Yes.
Why did you pick Howard?
I finally doubled up because I do believe that he is a guy with allergies, and when he sneezed, probably because of dust or something, you know, I feel like he may have punched himself in the eye. He's that kind of guy. It seems like, I don't know. He's just a guy that acts like he's the sweetest and, you know, what was me kind of guy, but those are the worst. I'm telling you. I think that there's something about him.
Underneath that fluffy exterior.
Underneath
that
that
ferocious kitty.
Fluffy Evelyn exterior. That's my guess. So, okay. Are you ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay. You said Alice. First of all, copycat.
Yes.
But, okay. You said,
no, there's a whole new reason for this.
All right. I want to hear. I cannot wait. Alice.
As you recall, I wondered if they would bring back Jan as kind of like a Silence of the Lambs,
you were great
kind of thing.
Yeah,
pick her brains, right?
Yep.
So they did that. And she said to beware of a new person in someone's life. And Alice is definitely a new person in someone's life. Plus, she also hid her murder card for the Son of Sam game.
Yeah.
Remember at the very end, it's hidden in her bag?
Yes. She bothered me as a gamer. She bent it. I mean, she bent the card, and I was like, oh, she can't do that shit. I mean, honestly, I'm just saying.
Scorched earth.
Scorched earth. And you just said pick your brain about Jan, which made me laugh because you got some good one-liners.
So,
yeah. Very good. Okay.
I'm also wondering.
Yeah.
Do you think she's really British? Because Oliver had a lot of questions about her background.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a fake thing as well. So I'm keeping my eye on Alice this week.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to Season 2, Episode 5 of Only Murders in the Pod. Our inbox is open again, so please send over your thoughts and theories to onlymurders@strawhutmedia.com. And if you're enjoying the show, like I know you are, please leave us a rating and a review. It really helps people find the show.
Only Murders in the Pod is a production of Straw Hut Media, hosted by Elizabeth Keener
me,
and Kevin Lawn, produced by Ryan Tillotson and Maggie Bowles. Associate producer is Stephen Markley, original music by Kyle Merritt, and Only Murders theme music by Siddhartha Khosla. Big thanks to John Hoffman, Xavier Salas, Louisa Maltini, and the entire Hulu team.
Okay, KK, so we're at the fan mail, and I'm going to read one, and you read one, and if we want to do a quick discussion. But this is so good. Ryan M., thank you so much. It says, I think Alice is the murderer, but it stems from a larger theory. I believe that Lenora Folger and Rose Cooper are the same person, Rose Cooper being the pen name for her art, and that Charles's father was in love with her and had a child with her. This child has the blueprints from the Arconia passed down from her mother, and that's how they placed the painting in Charles's apartment. Lenora ran away to have the child in hiding, and Alice is the grandchild of Lenora and wants her inheritance. Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting.
Really, Ryan, you thought that through, Ryan M. I really appreciate it. I was fascinated about the Rose Cooper being the pen name for her art, because a lot of people do have the pen names for their art, you know?
That's true.
What I think is fascinating that a lot of people think that Rose Cooper is still alive. Okay, what's yours, KK?
So, Keener, I picked Julie H for a very specific reason, because she picked Theo, who has been one of my guesses in the past. Her letter says, my current operating theory is that Theo is the killer. Bunny yells for the person to go away after they knock on her door, but then they knock a second time. Theo would not have heard her say that. She also thinks he knows about the secret underbelly of the building. And in theory, Lucy's nervous, heavy breathing when she's in the passageways would have been audible to the person with the flashlight, but Theo would not have heard that.
Ooh. See, that's really fleshed out too. That's a really good thought. Okay, that's all the time we have, but we want to thank some people. And I just want to say, Sarah B., thank you for the Easter egg clues idea. That was great.
Yeah, we also want to thank Celeste, Anna, Philip, Alyssa, Sarah, Jesslyn,
EAF 5878,
Ellen from South Carolina.
We appreciate. Some people try to do anagrams, JSD. Thank you, everyone. You are all, we greatly appreciate listening to this, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Keep them coming.